It's working. Just tried doing a live over on Instagram and it was not having it at all. I presumed it was the connection. But if it's working here, it cannot be that. Okay, so I was just chatting to somebody before about the nature of abuse by omission. So sometimes it's not very easy for us to wrap our heads around what it is that we've experienced and why life doesn't work for us as well as it should be doing, whereas it seems to be working out much easier, if not like nobody's just fine, but much easier for other people. And a lot of that can be because of abuse by omission, which is where you look at what a child is and you look at a child's development into being an adult, and you look at the things that a child needs, and it needs these things very strongly. It needs them with a great passion. When it doesn't get these things, when the child doesn't get the things that it needs so strongly and with such a passion, it doesn't develop the internal software that it should to do life. So then you're at the point where you're going, I can't pay my bills and I don't know why, or I can't make a decision about what to do next in my career and I don't know why. One of the big ones that I've been asked a lot, and it becomes almost like a broader philosophical question, is people say to me, you keep asking me to explore what I want and to find out what I want and go for what I want, but I don't know how to want. Well, again, that goes back to this kind of abuse by omission, where if you were never permitted to want anything, and if you were punished for expressing your wants and your needs, and if it went one step further and a tyrannical totalitarian parent actually pushed their wants on you as though they were your wants, then that little mechanism, it's fairly essential for a human being to get on with their life, called knowing what I want, gets destroyed, it gets damaged, and then you won't know what you want. The mechanism called I can ask for what I want, I can assert myself, the mechanism, the skill, the software upgrade that says it's okay for me to say no, simply doesn't get developed. And that might be I just said it could be the imposition by a totalitarian parent of their wants upon you, but it could just be being ignored. It could just be being treated as though your wants and your needs didn't mean anything. And this is a very pernicious, subtle, but very damaging kind of abuse where you are treated as though. And you'll see this with narcissistic abuse, narcissistically motivated emotional abuse, where you will be treated as though. So in your adult life with a romantic partner, you'll find yourself being treated as though you are a morally corrupt, completely insane individual. They might not say that you are, you're just being treated as though. One of the things that I found in my last shit show of a relationship with somebody who was really, looking back, far, far sicker than I ever wanted to really look at. That was their preferred method of emotional abuse, and their preferred method of gaslighting was to treat me as though I was, a mass murderer, to treat me as though I was the worst kind of human being imaginable, and to fire those feelings of contempt and disgust and hatred and loathing and rejection in my direction, but to not communicate them overtly and explicitly, but to meta-communicate them. Similarly, with a parent with a child, maybe the parent is very self-involved. There might be no narcissistic personality disorder present. It could be illness. It could be drug addiction. Where the parent, or it might be a different mental illness that just means that they're just not qualified for the role of parenting. And God knows, many humans are not. I mean, doing the kind of work I'm doing, I live in a reality tunnel where it seems to me like most humans are not qualified for the role of parenting. The idea that the simplest thing, which is to take this intrinsically, it sounds kind of weird just saying it out loud. I have a baby nephew. He's literally a baby. He's going to turn 1 this month. And I just look at him, I go, but he's so cute. Like, he's really, really cute. He's really, really funny. And he, because obviously I'm interested in psychology and particularly childhood trauma and development, I'm going, well, how do I feel about this? And I'm like, well, I kind of want to hang around with him. I kind of want to give him attention. I want to talk to him. I find it's rewarding. This is psychology speak. I don't talk like this when I'm around the baby, of course. Like, I'll just think about it afterwards. I'll be like, it's rewarding. I'll be like, is it literally rewarding? My brain says. And I go, yeah, I think it's literally rewarding. I think I'm literally getting a dopamine release, a serotonin release from being around him and from interacting with him. And then the psychology part of my brain goes, and what does he get from that? Well, there's an adult in the environment. He's looking at my face. Which is what children do. They do something and then they look to your face, and they'll look to your face and they'll look to the faces of the other adults in the room. So he did something. We were talking through FaceTime, and he was playing with a plug, or trying to play with a plug, and his mother said no, and he looked at her, and then he looked back at the plug and he went to reach for it again, and she said no, and then he looked at the iPad with my face on it and looked at me with my face, which is now just a 2-dimensional flat thing, to see what I would say, as if I would give him a different answer. And it was really, he's not even 1 yet. And you're going, okay, well, there's a lot going on here. Why would you not want to do the natural thing and just be involved in that? Now, that will to be involved, that intent to sort of observe the behavior of a child, a very, very small child, and to interact, it transpires, unsurprisingly, is extremely important to their ego development, and is extremely important to their neural development, to the brain development. They're literally looking at your face to learn, like the onboard computer is learning the meta-communication of the face. No, all means different things, and it's like they don't just have to learn a vocabulary, they have to learn the language behind the language, the what is implicit behind the language. Out of the University of Central London, there is a treatment for borderline personality disorder, but I don't think it would only be useful for people who've been diagnosed borderline personality disorder. It's called mentalization-based therapy. And when I was looking at the research that developed to the development of mentalization-based therapy, a lot of it was around how babies react to the facial expressions of parents. Now, if that parent is not present, or will not turn their face to the baby, or when they turn their face to the baby because they're of low emotional effect, like they're severely depressed, they're addicted to drugs, they are alcoholic and drunk all the time, if they're so severely ill they just cannot cope with having a baby, if they are personality disorder in the cluster B and loathe the baby, hate the baby as a source of competition for attention in their household unit, then the facial expressions that they do get in a limited way might just be completely flat or neutral, or they might be angry, or they might slightly convey contempt or resentment, but the baby's not going to learn. They're not going to learn what these different facial... I'm just giving you one tiny example of something that can have this abuse by omission, by not interacting with the child, by not giving them that time and that attention. The long-term effects of that is they'll show up to somebody like me, as I showed up to counsellors myself at age 45 going, I can't make a decision and I don't know why. Or I'm trying to figure out like this goal setting exercise a life coach gave me to do. But every time I think about what it is that I want, I have a panic attack. Whenever I start thinking about my needs and my wants, I become really sad. You know, I've got people now working through the Silence the Inner Critic course, and the kind of emotional feedback that I'm getting is all over the spectrum, and it's strong. It's very, very strong. People are talking about getting such elevated new emotions that it's affecting them somatically. It's affecting them in the body. And I think what's happening is, because of the nature of the course, it's almost like trying to fit, 18 years worth of parenting and development and guidance into like an 8-module course that lasts 6 hours or something, and exercises. And when you look at it from that point of view, it's like, wow, no wonder when psychiatrists look at somebody with what they would call deep-seated childhood trauma issues, they're reaching for the Bible of pharmaceuticals to see what drugs they can give them, because this is hard. Like, how do you make up for, well, I said 18 years. Really, when I hang around with my cousins and nephews and nieces, and they're at age 19, 20, 21, they're still so vulnerable. They're still so childlike and so impressionable, and could potentially be so easy to lead in the wrong direction, that you think, God, capping at 18 is a bit severe. 21 is still very, very young. I know by like 23, 24, I was still making like just preposterous decisions in my own life. So abuse by omission, before we start talking about overt torture, sexual abuse, shaming, guilt tripping, and all the rest of it, just not showing up for your kid, just not being involved, just not being interested, just not being able to be with them, can really do damage. There's something that I can't quite put into words, but I suspect it's really, really important for kids, and it probably would make people ask me to give advice about parenting, and I'm like, it's a bit presumptuous for me to do that when I haven't got any kids of my own. But one of the things I suspect that I've got from coaching and working with people with psychology, and I suspect it's really important for kids, is to try and enter their subjective reality. So try and look at the world through their eyes. So be in the moment with them and imagine what the world looks like to them, and come at it from that place. And even when they're not babies anymore, when they're 14, 15 and 16, I think this is why I got results in the schools with when I was working in schools with kids. They would tell me, oh, they're useless, or there's nothing we can do with these kids. There's nothing at all we can do with them. And I'd be like, okay, well, when I first started doing that, I really didn't want to do it. People were like, would you like to do this with the teenagers? And I was like, I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible. And but the money was good, and I really needed the money. So I was like, I'll try for a month before I quit. And I think it was 2 years later, I was like a keynote speaker at the National Education Conference in Birmingham. On the same billing, I was only 27, 28. On the same billing was the guy who invented the term mind maps. I can't remember his name right now. He's Tony something. And I was like, wow, how did that happen? And my only technique, well, not my only technique, sorry, the main principle that I worked from was see the world through their eyes. If they're interested in, like, the teenage world is very much about building and understanding status, and building and understanding social interaction, and trying to acquire and moderate power. They're very much about popularity. And behind that drive to popularity, there's a lot of hormonal injunction to sex. So if you can understand, when teenagers are obsessed with being cool, that's because they're obsessed with status. And that's because their status is going to directly influence how things work out for them sexually. They're not thinking that, of course. That's not what's going through their head. There's no conscious thought to that whatsoever. But unconsciously, that's what a lot of the drive is. So I figured out that if you wanted to get the attention of a room full of kids, you kind of needed to be the highest status person in the room. and you kind of needed to dangle the carrot of status in front of them. You'd be like, listen to me, you teenage rapscallions who are hanging around street corners stabbing grannies in the head. They weren't doing that, but they were disruptive kids that I worked with all over the UK. I'm the highest status person in this room. I'm cooler than all of you. I'm way cooler than all of you. And if you listen to me, I'm going to teach you how to be cool as well. It's quite a bluff, you know. It takes some doing, and you can't be cooler than them in the way that they're cool because you're old. Because to a 14-year-old, 28 is old as shit. But yeah, anyway, I'm talking about teenagers now. I wanted to talk about you need to enter the subjective reality of the person that you're dealing with, and that could be a 1-year-old baby who's on the floor, and sometimes they're walking whilst they hold on to stuff, and you know, they want to bang things together, and they want to shout noise, and they want to put the thing that is over there in the thing that is over there. And these are all expressions of power. These are all expressions of trying to figure out my way in the world. Now, if in the case of, say, my nephew, if every time he picked something up that was like not for that purpose and tried to put it in another thing that it seemed to fit inside of, which is just, it's how he's learning and how he's affecting the environment. So he wants to pick up the car keys and sling them inside of the plant pot, or he wants to pick up the coaster and bang it against the window because it makes a noise. And he did that, and then he goes, wah, he like bangs it and goes, wah, because he conquered it. If you say you were a drunk or you were a heroin addict and that noise was driving you insane, and you screamed at him, or a baby like that, or even went so far as to hit them every time they tried to interact with the world, what will they do? Well, they're going to go into one of the 4 Fs. They're either going to freeze and shit themselves because they're terrified. They're going to fight back and go, rah, screw you, and throw the keys at your face. They're either going to run away, or they're going to try and negotiate their way out of the terrifying position that you've put them in. So maybe, like, that little bit of parenting advice that I presume to give would be, don't put your kids in a catch-22. Whatever age they are, don't put them in a catch-22, and don't be a hypocrite. Don't do stuff that you don't want them to do. If the rule is everybody in the house takes the shoes off at the door, you go first. Mummy and Daddy take their shoes off first, and you do what we do, because you're the highest status people in that pack. You're in charge of that little tribe, and what you do, they do. And be aware that kids are always going to do more of what you do than what you say. They're going to follow what you do rather than what you say. They're unconsciously predisposed. Whew, I nearly tried to meld that with dispossessed. Predisposed to copy your actions and your behaviours, even the bad ones. The drinking, the swearing, the fighting, if that's there, that will be there for them later in life. Boundary breaking behaviours, hypersexuality, use of narcotics, being a rageaholic, that's what they're going to... You can't say, oh, I know you just saw Daddy flip out and smash a table in with his fists, but you be nice and polite. Well, you can say that, but that's not what you're going to generate in the child. So enter their subjective reality where they are. And for those of us who are trying to overcome CPTSR and the kind of difficulties and limitations that we have a little bit of self-compassion that comes from being detached and understanding, you know, if you're not given what you needed, if you were not given what it is that you needed in childhood, you're damn right you're going to have problems. You're damn right you're going to have problems asserting. How are you going to assert yourself? Nobody showed you that you were worth fighting for. Nobody ever stood up for you. Nobody ever stood behind you and went, stand up for yourself. You can do it. It's all right. Because I love you, that means you're lovable. And if you're lovable, then you're as precious as any precious thing. You're as precious as any precious person. And you don't let other people break a precious thing of yours, do you? You don't let them dirty it. You don't let them abuse it. So why would you do it to you? You don't. So you stand up for yourself. So that's what I wanted to say about abuse by omission. And now I will look through the questions. Deborah Ball says, ooh, right in the feels. That's where I try and hit people. Cindy Adams asks, what's the R in CPTSR? It's the complex post-traumatic response. I'm choosing to call it a response because if we say, I actually forgot what D was then. If we call it a disorder, it sounds like a personality disorder, and it sounds like it's permanent, pervasive, and personal, which is what a personality disorder needs to be in order to qualify as one. Whereas CPTSD is not permanent, pervasive, and personal, so therefore it's not a D. It's a response. It's a response to stress. It's a response to trauma, and it can be healed and it can be retrained. So I'm trying to use CPTSR more than CPTSD. Okay. Samantha says, I can't love this video enough. It perfectly described what happened when I was a kid. That's good. Anything that generates more understanding, I think, can create more self-compassion. And in that space, you can kind of think about it like mechanically, like, oh, why can I not make a decision? And then the superego, the inner critic will go, because you're a fucking pussy. Because you're fucking spineless, man. You're just fucking useless, man. And then you could go, well, maybe. Or maybe it's because whenever I stated what I wanted and went for it and decided things for myself when I was a child, I'd be mocked for it. I'd be punished for it. I'd be hit for it. I'd be shamed for it. I'd be guilted for it. And then that can help. Jennifer says, I was always told no. I hesitated before I did anything, apparently. Yeah. I mean, that's what can happen with very nervous parents. You know, you might have had parents who are very, very loving, but they're just way too anxious, and it disqualifies them as good parents because they go, oh, geez, oh my God, oh no, oh God in heaven. You know, your kid's trying to pick its nose, and you're like, oh my Jesus Christ, you poke your brain out. Instead of being like, hey, don't fucking do that, it's gross. Get a tissue. You know, or when the child walks towards the wrong place because, I don't know, there's a wall there. And you go, oh my God. Instead of just going, hey, don't do that. Come here. Because if you do that, you'll break yourself, and then I have to make a new one. And you were expensive, so I don't want to do that. Natalia says, I know adults who are obsessed with status. Sure, some people they get stuck. You know, that's the definition of one of the definitions or perceptual filters for narcissism is that it's an infantile personality disorder. People who are secure and healed and whole and happy in themselves are not obsessed with status. Those who are insecure, who have a little voice inside of them that's telling them they're worthless and they're not good enough, they'll probably be obsessed with status. And you might very well be dealing with people who are actually developmentally stuck, developmentally retarded, developmentally held back. Retarded means tardy is tardy, as in late, from Latin for time. Held back in time at a particular age, and they just can't move forward. Shay says, that kind of understanding of others is crucial to actual communication, and it just isn't taught. Yeah, somebody was telling me off the other day for swearing, and they were like, you know, it's really off-putting, and you should learn to communicate better, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, man, I do swear, but I'm a really good communicator. That's all I do is communicate. I'm actually pretty shit hot as a communicator, and I swear. And you don't swear, and you suck as a communicator. So yeah, like, to me, that's what true compassion is trying to, with good intent, with respect, without breaking boundaries, trying to enter the other person's reality and to see things from their point of view. As I say, that's with positive intent, which make it compassion as opposed to just empathy. Tony Bazan, thank you. Victoria says, yes, I've always tried to put myself in my kids' shoes, even now at 16 and 21, which is a great thing to do. And remember how they see you. Remember how they see you as well. So when you're putting yourself in your kids' shoes, look at how they would look at you and look at what you've taught them, not verbally, but you're teaching them how to be in the world. And remember that 16 and 21 is still very young. If there's anything you want to teach them, the best way that you can teach them to do it is by doing it yourself. They'll just follow what you do automatically and unconsciously. It's always easier to train people unconsciously than consciously. Derek says, hey Rich. Hi Derek. Okay. Kat says, it happened to my daughter before she was 1. She waved at my mother on FaceTime and my mother totally ignored her. That's mean. I watched my daughter recoil. So she was looking for the validation and then she didn't get it, so there was a recoiling. That's always really, really sad. But that's all they need. It's just like a, hey. That's what I do to my nephew on FaceTime. It makes him laugh. I say, hey. And then put my face close to the camera and he goes, whoa. The face got bigger. But it's funny, like, at first on FaceTime, he would try and flip the iPad to see if I was behind it. And now he knows. It's kind of spooky, really. So, like, technologically, he already knows that's not the man. That's the representation of him. And I know he's not behind it because I've already tried this. And he wasn't there last time, so he's not going to be there this time either. Okay, let's see if some of the more recent questions. I vacillate, says Margie, between teaching my kids the outside world is unsafe and to be on guard all the time and to try to get them to be socially responsible and engaging. Yeah, you need to give them a consistent and congruent message. So, and it's, the world is a complex place. There are good people in it. The majority of people in the world are good. But the few that are bad are loudly bad, are attention-grabbingly bad, and they're very, very bad, which can colour things. So we just need to be a little bit careful, and we need to be smart, and we need to watch out. But the world basically is populated by good people. Just be on your guard for the few bad ones. That's the message I always try and give to young'uns. Jill says, this is hard to work through. Why is there shame around being abused? I mean, for me, it's been my daily bread for years, and so there isn't, but there was. For me, I didn't feel like a man because I had been abused. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt guilt around it, like I'd caused it, like I'd made it happen. I don't know. I mean, it's quite an intimate sort of a thing. It's a vulnerable thing to admit abuse. Maybe there's just shame or icky feelings around anything that involves realness and depth. It's like the whole thing around shame around sexuality. I'm not really. I think that there should be boundaries around it, but the extent of the shame I don't think is particularly helpful. Why is it like that? You know what? I really don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one. I don't know why there is such shame around abuse. I know that for me, part of my shame was that I felt like I didn't feel like a man because of it. Cindy says, I'm getting ready to deep dive on healing childhood traumas. What will it feel like when I get through to the other side? If the work you're doing is good, and you're with a good therapist when you do it. Oh, and it works, and you actually don't just talk around the issue, but actually heal the issue. It feels like it feels like what it would feel like if you had a real pain your whole life, and you were carrying a burden your whole life and you didn't realize you were, and then it comes off and you're not carrying it anymore. You're going to feel an awful lot lighter. You're going to feel an awful lot more whole. Things are going to make sense more. Your perception of the world will become much clearer. Your social interactions become much fucking easier, and you become more approachable. That's a weird thing for me, is like people just come up and start talking to me now, which makes me think for years I must have been wearing like a mask of fucking don't talk to me, stay away from me. I didn't mean to, wasn't intentional, but I get people just regularly just coming up to me now and going, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, what? What's that? Where were you 3 years ago? Why wasn't this happening? I felt really depressed and isolated. So that's easier. You stop fighting with yourself. I think for a lot of us, the worst part of it is you feel like you're in a constant brawl with your own self. You feel poisoned. That goes away. It's awesome. It's fucking awesome. Whether you do it through the way I do things, or whether you do it with anybody, you know, however you get it done, however you get healing childhood trauma done, if it works, the end result is like you get your life back, and it's awesome in ways that are hard to imagine. When I was somebody asked me about this, overcoming CPTSR, not just childhood trauma, when I was in Oakland last year, and in the spur of the moment, I kind of gave them an answer that was really, really on the money, which was, it kind of felt like I was high all the time. Now, don't get me wrong. What I meant was, and this is what I explained, when I used to drink a lot, I used to drink in my 20s, I'd drink a fair amount. I used to take Coke, and I used to get into a lot of fights. I was doing nightclub security work, and I liked fighting, drinking, and snorting Coke. And being less than thoroughly responsible and focused on my karma and my intimate interactivities, shall we say. And I was trying to get high. I was trying to get elevated. And I realized, like in the last sort of year or so, why that was. And I was like, I was always trying to feel like this. I was always just trying to feel like this. I was trying to feel okay. But I didn't conceptualize it as okay, because I didn't know I wasn't okay. I didn't know that my baseline state was so bad that I was trying to get like a hit of something to then go, oh, now I feel okay, which would only ever be for like purely temporary, and then feel terrible again. So it is kind of like feeling high all the time. There are theories, and there are hypotheses being developed around the idea that people who are lifetime alcoholic and drug addicts might be looking for the dopamine and serotonin that they should naturally be carrying as a jacket you wear to deal with daily reality. And maybe why people with CPTSR are fragile, and so vulnerable to stress, and so vulnerable to so many things like noise and crowds and too much information and the pressure of going to the supermarket to buy milk, which can then induce either rage or sleepiness, or it's like life is hard like that. It might be biochemical. It might just be like, well, you're supposed, like, this isn't my field, but say like say this bottle is you, and it's supposed to be full all the way to the brim with the hormones of feeling good, just pleasant, just the level. You're not high, you're not walking around like, wow, it's amazing, but you just feel good. And every day you wake up and it's just like that. It's just at that level. Maybe you're waking up every day and actually it's down. Whoa, there we go. It's down here instead of being all the way up here, and you're just depleted. You're just living life. Imagine living your life constantly thirsty or constantly hungry. You'd be pretty fucking cranky, right? I suspect that something like that is happening with these their hormones and remember the lingo, Richie. They're neurotransmitters as well, but these are things that your brain is supposed to produce to make you feel okay, and maybe you don't do that if you weren't given that attention and that love when you were a kid, where it wasn't told to explicitly and behaved to you implicitly. You're okay, you're all right, hey there, I see you there, you're all right, you're doing your thing, that's okay. A lot of that throughout the whole developmental phase, to the point where you just, your dopamine levels and serotonin levels are coming up. Because, coming back to the example of the baby, it's a rewarding experience for me to talk to the baby, and it's a rewarding experience for him as well, to talk to me and to talk to his mom and to talk to his dad and to talk to their friends who come round to the house and chat to him, and even to a dog that comes over and licks his face, and he's getting a biochemical reward because he laughs and he smiles and he feels good. So he bangs the coffee coaster on the tabletop, and then people laugh and go, hey, stop it, don't do that. And he goes, ha ha ha, you said stop but you laughed, ha ha ha. And he laughs. So presumably he's getting a hit from that. Maybe this is, wow, I'm out on a limb here, but maybe in those years when that's happening, you're filling up with what you're supposed to be filling up with. Hey, I see you there, what are you doing? Playing with my car keys. Oh, there's a little, what are you doing? Do you thing with the thing? Oh, look, there's another bit. Oh, you fell down. Okay, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to cuddle you a bit now. Oh, there's a little bit more dopamine. There's a bit more serotonin. Maybe that's what goes on. Maybe that's what happens. That those little tiny little interactions are just constant slow drip of you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. And the serotonin and the dopamine levels come up. And then maybe your brain, your body, the HPA axis normalizes to that level and goes, okay, well, this is how much I'm going to give you for the rest of your life. So how does it feel overcoming childhood trauma and overcoming, I presume I've overcome most of the CPTSR. It certainly feels that way. It feels like I'm high on my own supply, man. Endogenous drugs are the drugs that you produce in your own body. Exogenous are the ones that you take externally. My baseline state is really good. Like, I wake up and I'm like, ooh, things feel smooth. Things feel light. I feel motivated. Hey, here's the thing that this is, right. People who have CPTSR, you're going to like this. If you overcome CPTSR and childhood trauma, or at least some of it, and you heal from it, you can make a list of things that you want to do that day, and you can do them. The end. That's it. You just do it. You just get shit done, and you could stay in a good mood, and you don't cry. You don't get really angry. You don't get really depressed. You don't procrastinate for 3 hours by, I don't know, playing video games or scrolling through Instagram or whatever the tool of dissociation you prefer. You don't do it. You just make a list of shit that you want to do, and then you go and do the stuff, and then that's it. There's no drama. That's nice, right? That's it. That's my sales pitch. I have 2 sales pitches. One is heal from childhood trauma, heal from CPTSR. You won't want to kill yourself anymore. Yay. Number 2 is heal from childhood trauma and CPTSR. When you make a list of stuff to do, you go and do it. You go and do it, and it's going to be fine. You just have no problems. You just get on with it, and you're good, and it's great. That's nice. Like, when you've lived for years trapped in kind of like, I need to get stuff done, but I can't get it done. But then if I do get it done, what would that mean? Oh my God, no. Okay, no. Oh dear, oh Jesus, oh God, you're like bouncing around the room, or you start getting it done and you get like 2 things done, and then you're like, okay, I need to stop now because I'm too stressed, or you get shit done. You get shit done. And that's nice. You get to go on with your life. You get your life back. So yeah, that's what it feels like. It's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to go right the way to the bottom. Okay. Vashta says that's a totally legit pitch. Buy this product. You won't want to kill yourself, or at least not as much. The second thing is you write a list of stuff and you go get it done. It's great. Fucking great. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop right there. Thank you very much for tuning in to this live, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers. I can't find the finish button. This is awkward. I'll sing you a song. No, I won't. That'd be more than awkward. It'd be horrifying. Everybody would need therapy afterwards. Then he sang a song. It was so horrible. My ears.